Hi, this is Steve Rigolosi, and today on Forgotten Mysteries, I have for you Ice by Ed McBain. This is one of the many 87th Precinct mysteries, copyright 1983 by Arbor House. So, what can I say about Ed McBain that hasn't already been said? He is the master, right? He is the king of the police novel. And the word the king of, the queen of, this icon, that icon, all the superlatives, they're thrown around a lot. But I think that if we look at the many police proceduralists over the decades, I don't think there's any doubt that the critical consensus is that Ed McBain is the best of them. Many of the others are good, but no one ever did it quite as well as McBain. And I have to show you something that I love. So this is an anthology, an omnibus of his very first 3 novels ever published by Inner Sanctum. The very first of which was called Cop Hater, and the other 2 are The Mugger and The Pusher. And if you see the back here, it is pretty much every classic, well-regarded mystery writer gushing about Ed McBain. Earl Stanley Gardner, John MacDonald, Rex Stout, Thomas Dewey, Dorothy Salisbury Davis, Harold Q. Mazer, Will Orsler, Frederick Brown, Thomas Walsh, John Robert, George Bagby. And the list goes on and on. It just goes to show really what a mark Ed McBain made on this genre. And I'm glad to say that, unlike some of the other writers I talk about on this channel, I don't think Ed McBain is forgotten. I think he is still read. So I guess let me tell you a little bit about Ed McBain. So Ed McBain was the pseudonym of Evan Hunter, who also published regular straight novels and non-87th Precinct books under his own name, Evan Hunter. However, Evan Hunter was not even his real name. He was born with the name Salvatore Lombino, a fellow Paisan, and got some advice early in his career that with a last name like that, he was not going to get anywhere. And he very wisely took that advice. And I could say, as an Italian American, or an American of Italian extraction, I understand why he would have made that decision. Because how many last names that sound Italian do you find on the bestseller lists? Not many. So something's going on there, but that's a different conversation for a different day. So he didn't just keep the name Salvatore Lombino and write under pseudonyms. He actually changed his name to Evan Hunter and promptly put Salvatore behind him. So the choices people will make to get a book contract. And I'm not looking askance at him for that. Like I said, I understand the perceived necessity. And it was clearly the right choice because his books have sold gazillions. Now, as far as the 87th Precinct books go, I put them into kind of 2 categories: the earlier work and the later work. And here's how I distinguish them. The earlier work is tight. It's about 200 pages, rapidly paced, tightly written, get in and get out and do it all very well in 200 pages. In the later part of his career, the books ballooned out to 300, 325 pages, and you see and feel the padding in them more. And my sense is, I don't know this, but my gut instinct, being in the publishing business, is that as he moved from one publisher to another, I think publishers felt that he would have more credibility if he was writing what they considered more true novel-length books of 300 pages. And that the books might be perceived as more substantial. And of course, a book that is a little bit longer, you can charge more for. So there are all those things going on. And pretty much in all of the later books, even though McBain pads well, you still see a little bit of that padding and think, this doesn't really have to be here. It almost feels like an add-on to make the page count. And I think that was probably at the behest, like I said, of his publisher, his agent, or both. I did some research into the publication history of Ice, and I see that with this book, he moved from Random House to Arbor House as his publisher. And you can kind of see in the book that Arbor House was trying to maybe relaunch him or help him gain a wider audience, because there's a fairly large chunk of this book that reviews what has happened in earlier books, reviews the characters' histories, goes over the characters and their quirks and their personality traits. So it's almost like a series launch in a way. And so if you're an Ed McBain fan, you read those sections and you sort of smile because you remember them from previous books. And if you were new to McBain, you were learning about his characters and his world. In fact, you can see here the not at all subtle subtitle is, sorry for the glare, a major new novel about the world of the 87th Precinct. So major new novel world. Instead of it saying an 87th Precinct book, there's all this extra verbiage that I think seeks to elevate it. And let's face it, McBain did not need elevation because he was fabulous. And there were very few things that he could not do very well and run rings around, most of his competitors with respect to. But, publishing decisions. So, padding aside, McBain does in this book what he does in a bunch of his other books, with the title giving a clue to the various plots and subplots that are sometimes separate and sometimes intertwined. And he riffs on the word and its multiple meanings. Like, he has another book called Tricks, and he plays on the word tricks with the plots of that book, where there's a musician who does tricks, there's a hooker who turns tricks, other various, takes on the word tricks. And here he is taking on various iterations of the word ice to mean the setting, New York, I shouldn't say New York City, I'll say Isola, I'll come back to that. In the winter, when everything is icy, ice in terms of diamonds, ice in terms of a theater term that I had not heard of, and a practice I had not heard of, and which I won't tell you about, so that you too will be surprised. So it's kind of fun to see what a really talented writer can do in terms of creating these thematically linked crimes or stories in between two covers. So what is there to love about Ed McBain? And so many things. First of all, I think he's got the single best set of characters as a cast in his books. They are all distinctive, and you remember them all from book to book. in contrast, if you read, Dell Shannon, Leslie Egan, a lot of her people kind of meld together. Other than the leads, they're all kind of interchangeable. If you read the Gideon books by J.J. Marric, it's really Gideon and Lemaitre, and not a lot of other characters whose names you would remember. But McBain put together a cast, and the cast is fabulous. Very real, very good cops, but far from perfect. Strong, but they have their weaknesses and their vulnerabilities, and they're just your friends in a way. You just want to spend time with these people, which is why Ed McBain never gets old, no matter how many books of his you read. My favorite of his characters, who really is the lead in the 87th, although he does share top billing with the other characters depending on the book, is Steve Carella, an Italian American from what is actually the Bronx, but in these books is called Riverhead. And Steve is just a cool guy whom you really like. And I love his relationship with his wife, Teddy, who is deaf. They have the most adorable, loving relationship. You read about them and think, this is what a marriage should be all about. They are so cute together. And some of the other cops have some, interesting marriages that maybe aren't quite as happy. And there's even one character who has a horrible experience in his marriage. And that is talked about in Ice, but I won't go into details because I don't want to give anything away. The stories are always good, but I have to say, where I think McBain reigns supreme is dialogue. This man could write dialogue like nobody else. I mean, it is I've tried to kind of analyze it so that I could specify what makes it so good. And I really can't do that, except I don't have the capability. I mean, I wish I did, except to say that it sounds the way people really talk. It's a mixture of business and joking around and kidding and some humor, but very serious when it has to be. Good discussions about police work and throwing around different ideas about the crimes among the characters. And McBain's people don't just talk about their crimes, because they're people who have relationships. They talk about other things too, like normal people talk about things other than their job, as long as they're not boring. So all of these things contribute to the 87th series and to McBain's reputation as the master. And in Ice, he shows how well he does all of these things. So I recommend it wholeheartedly. I guess a couple things. One is, and this is purely me, it has nothing to do with the book. I think I've grown kind of weary of drug plots, of drug dealing, drug pushers, drug buyers, probably because drugs have become so normalized in our society. And let's face it, we have lost the war on drugs, right? That war is lost, and there are drugs everywhere. You can get anything you want at any time, except things you might really need. Like, for example, I have this chronic cough that is only helped by codeine cough syrup, and no pharmacy will fill it because it's an opioid. So meanwhile, I could go out on the street and buy crystal meth, but I can't get cough syrup. Different story. But anyway, I guess I've just become a little cynical about drug stories because they don't resonate with me as much as they would have with an audience when drugs were still kind of considered bad and drug dealing was not considered to be a good thing. So I guess the plot feels a little dated to me in that way. But if I look at it through a 1983 lens, year of publication, and I had read it that year, I don't think I would feel quite as cynical about the drug plot. But don't let that put you off. I'm just giving you my opinion here. It does have a little bit of that padding that I've talked about, but one of the nice things about that padding is that it allows McBain to get in one of his women cops, Eileen Burke, who is terrific. She is great and brave, a brave woman who she is a decoy. She goes out there and serves as a decoy for rapists and pimps and other baddies, and is constantly putting herself in danger. And it's just so cool. I mean, you just want to hang with Eileen, and yet even she has her insecurities. I want to say there are a few things in this book that would not make it past an editor today. Some language issues. There's one particular thing about Eileen. I don't want to say it because I don't want to put you off her, but let's just say she has a sexual fantasy that I think a lot of readers nowadays would take exception to. I mean, I guess the point is sexual fantasies are, you don't necessarily want them to come true. That's why they're fantasies. But hers is a little disturbing. So kind of be prepared for that if you decide to read Ice. And I guess I really don't have much more to say about this book. I could gush with love for Ed McBain, for hours more, but I've already done that. If you are new to McBain, and I hope some people who are watching this are on the younger side and looking for great writers to read. If you're new to McBain, I would say start with some of the earlier books that he did. For Inner Sanctum, some of the first 15 or 20 books before the page count got padded out, because I think when you see him in that really tight mode, you see him at his best. It's not that he's not good, in the later books. It's just that I think that those early books really are the prime examples of him just working at the top of his game. So I've got a bunch of other Ed McBain books on my shelf. There are always a few waiting because he is old reliable. When I need someone who I know is going to show me a good time, it's Ed McBain. And I just think that his accomplishment in terms of making his cast feel like your friends or your family is extraordinary. Another person who's accomplished this, I think, is Alexander McCall Smith with the Number One Ladies Detective Agency. I've read all of those books, and every time I crack open the first page, I feel like, oh, I'm back with my friends in Botswana, with the always loving Mara Matsue and the always pain in the ass Mama Kutsi and the always tough cookie Ma Barakwane. I mean, it's like going home, even though I've never been to Botswana and probably never will go because I don't think I could put up with the 120-degree heat. But a writer who can create a cast like this, create dialogue like this, create relationships like this is, and do it book after book, is a rarity, I think. So I'm hitting the 20-minute mark on this video. I'm sorry. Long story short, check out McBain. Run, don't walk. Let your fingers do the walking on the web. Find yourself a McBain book and leave me a message here thanking me. Okay, thanks. Have a good night. Bye.